Senate strikes a deal. Congress is set to vote on a spending deal tonight that boosts military and domestic spending by close to $300 billion over the next 2 years, while suspending the debt cap until March of 2019. Now, lawmakers must agree on spending levels by midnight tonight to avoid a shutdown. Joining me right now is national spokesperson for America's First Policies and Donald Trump's presidential campaign, Katrina Pierson. Katrina, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here. Good morning.
What do you think in terms of this budget deal? Do you think it passes, and what does that say about the president in terms of his involvement?
I do think it passes. I know that the House Republicans, specifically the Freedom Caucus, are going to have to really do some soul searching to support this particular plan. I mean, this is just a framework, however. But it's going to be tough. I mean, we can't pretend that there are some things in there that are going to be very difficult for specifically Freedom Caucus members when it comes to government spending and things like that without any cuts. These are the people that have to go home to their districts. They have to explain to their constituency why they're not just voting against their own principles, but against the party platform. But I think, however, if it is packaged as a bipartisan deal, something that forces DACA to stand alone, something that does put in place a framework to move forward, they're going to have 6 weeks to do appropriations. It'll be incumbent upon them to make sure that money is spent appropriately.
Yeah, but Dagan, we already heard from Mark Meadows. We heard from Jim Jordan. They are not liking the spending that we're talking about here.
No, $131 billion, and if you go through the list, this is just the $131 billion more in discretionary spending over the next 2 years. Here's the issue, that the baseline now is set even higher, and the list of spending wants and what the Democrats got is quite long. $6 billion for the opioid crisis, well, that's great, but can the communities that will receive the money even absorb it at this point? They got $1 billion. Congress allocated $1 billion for state grants in a 2016 law, and there's no tracking of this money.
And then there's stuff that they didn't expect, like the disaster relief.
Right, you throw money at a problem, and I'll just raise the issue. You watched the bond market when this was announced yesterday, and granted that we're paying less than 3% every year to borrow over a 10-year period, but the bond market is telling everybody that the debt and deficits in this country are becoming a problem, and look out below.
They matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but see, Dagan, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's been a problem, and we have to remind all the viewers how these people ended up in Congress. It was to prevent the increasing of the debt and the deficit and to get government spending on control, which we've yet to be seen. You know, we have just recently, Ernst & Young did an audit of the Defense Logistics Agency, which somehow lost $800 million in construction projects. And the people are looking at this saying there has never been accountability in these areas. How are we going to get this under control? But what I'm saying is Republicans are in control. They are the ones that can now take care of not just the accountability, but where this money goes.
Katrina, you know, you're in the business of politics. This is Pete Hegseth. How often or is it useful for this president to be at odds with the most conservative members of his caucus? You've got the Freedom Caucus and others saying this just blows open the budget and debt and deficit, yet the president likely to make the deal crossing over the aisle with Democrats. Is there some point at which his base is frustrated with that, or is he able to sort of chart his own course as a deal maker?
Well, with this particular proposal, Pete, I got to tell you, the DACA thing was really scary to the base. This gives the Republicans a chance to separate that and deal with it as a separate issue. If this is something that they could do for a 2-year deal to put in the framework to get some of these projects off the ground, I think the base is willing to support that. But I will say the president has been very much involved and engaged, but he's also allowing Congress to handle this, and that's how it needs to be handled. If there is an issue, then now is the time for the Freedom Caucus to not only outline those issues, but put out the solutions.